Hello everyone. Have you ever been so fundamentally wrong about something that you're left with no choice except to double down and insist that you are the one that is correct and every other person is actually wrong? There was this one time where I accidentally said that Lin-Manuel Miranda, award-winning American actor, composer, lyricist, producer, director, and playwright, completed his undergraduate degree at the University of Pennsylvania in Pennsylvania. This is, of course, simply not true. Unfortunately, it is far too late to go back on my word. Please, do not try to find out where he actually went to school. There is a reason you can't cite Wikipedia in an academic setting. The media is lying to you. You can't trust them. He went to UPenn. Please believe me. Why am I telling you any of this? I wanted to get it off my chest. But of course, this personal story also reminded me of another tale that I will now tell you. Welcome to the 1960s. Meet Corentin Louis Kervran, a French scientist and engineer. Kervran, like all scientists, is seeking to gain a better understanding of how the world works. His experimental focus involves chickens. One of the big questions of the 20th century was, of course, how do chickens make eggs? Kervran knew that eggshells were mostly made of calcium carbonate. In the 1960s, he conducted a number of experiments where he placed chickens on a diet of oats and observed that they still laid eggs. Oats don't contain calcium, so where was the calcium coming from? Kervran, of course, jumped to the first logical conclusion. Chickens are able to produce calcium through nuclear fusion. Oats contain potassium, and Kervran theorized that the calcium needed for eggshells was being produced inside chickens through the fusion of potassium and hydrogen, a process he called the Kervran effect. He then gave the name biological transmutation to all such fusion reactions in biological systems. This is, of course, completely impossible, but let's entertain the idea for a bit. Potassium has 19 protons and 20 neutrons, hydrogen has 1 proton, and calcium has 20 protons and 20 neutrons. On this front, Kervran is correct. You could technically fuse potassium and hydrogen together to form calcium. However, there is a reason you typically only hear of fusion reactions happening in nuclear bombs, stars, or Chinese reactors. Because the nucleus of an atom consists of positively charged protons and neutrally charged neutrons, fusing the nuclei of two different atoms is extremely difficult. Think of it as trying to smash two positively charged magnets together, except the repulsive forces between them are impossibly strong, preventing you from ever bringing them together close enough to touch. The energy barrier that has to be overcome in order to accomplish fusion is called the Coulomb barrier. As an example, hydrogen, the easiest element to fuse, needs temperatures above 100 million degrees Celsius in order to overcome the Coulomb barrier. Let's go back to Kervran. The scientific community has generally agreed that chickens cannot produce temperatures of 100 million degrees, so nuclear fusion this way doesn't work. Luckily, there are alternative methods that allow fusion to occur at far lower temperatures. For example, look at the sun. Okay, you can stop. The sun fuses a bunch of stuff in its core but only has a temperature of around 15 million degrees Celsius, which is far too low for hydrogen fusion. Instead, the sun fuses hydrogen through quantum tunneling, as the immense gravity and pressure in the core holds hydrogen nuclei close enough for long enough that each one has a small chance of simply ignoring the Coulomb barrier and fusing anyways. Multiply this by an uncountably large amount of hydrogen and you have constant nuclear fusion. Unfortunately, my quantum physics is a little rusty at the moment, so I'm not going to be able to explain this any further and we'll leave it at that. In terms of chickens, quantum tunneling also fails to answer our question, as chickens still have none of the conditions required to bring nuclei anywhere near close enough to quantum tunnel. The scientists of the 1960s had a pretty good understanding of nuclear fusion, which you don't really even need to know much about to doubt Kervran's theories. When the scientific community brought up how Kervran's biological transmutation violated essentially all known physical laws, Kervran simply responded by saying that physical laws do not apply to biological reactions, which, quote, contradicts the mainstream understanding that physical laws apply for all scales and conditions. It turns out that chickens do not conduct nuclear fusion after all. But this still leaves us with Kervran's original experimental question. How do chickens get the calcium to make eggs on a diet of only oats? It's been over 60 years since Kervran's initial experiment, and I can now, finally, give you the answer. Oats actually do contain calcium. Although biological transmutation was disproved in the 1900s and remains incorrect, Kervran's teachings do live on in a branch of strangely garden-related pseudoscience. I got lazy and did not bother looking into this very much, but Somebody did write a literature review, and there have been a handful of articles and videos on the subject. I'm going to leave you off with an excerpt from this article titled, Biological Transmutation. Can organisms really do this? Quote, as to whether or not this is actually possible, that's up for debate. There are a lot of things we don't know. I think this is possible, and I think that there are some things in the book that are difficult to explain otherwise. I think it could have important implications for organic vegetable gardening. What do you think about this? Is it just too crazy, or are scientific laws made to be broken? Alright, thank you for watching everybody. I'll see you in the next one.